Mga ilang araw pagbalik ni Duterte mula China, ang Chinese Coast Guard ay binomba ng tubig ang Philippine Coast Guard na maghahatid ng supply sa Ayungin Shoal. So panoorin po natin.
Speed,
Speed sir,
sorry.
0.7 knots sir.
starboard back 1.
Kaya namang hinaharang ng Chinese Coast Guard ang Philippine Coast Guard kasi ang sinasabi ng China, kanila yung Ayungin Shoal. Okay, so pakinggan po natin. So follow na kayo para ma-notify kayo pag may bagong video. Okay, so follow and share. Thank you.
We're now joined by Jonathan Malaya, the Assistant Director General at the National Security Council. Good morning to you, sir.
Yes, good morning, Karen, and good morning to all your viewers today.
All right, a strong statement there. We will never abandon Ayungin Shoal. Let's start first with what does the National Security Council make of these gray zone tactics of China in Philippine waters?
Well, I think the gray zone tactics have been exposed already, no? Because there's still the China's narrative is that these Chinese fishing vessels are just fishing vessels, and they're not part of any form of militia. They're there to fish, no? But as we saw very clearly in the evidence presented by the Philippine Coast Guard and the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the Chinese militia vessels or the Chinese fishing vessels were acting in concert to corral or to blockade Ayungin Shoal to prevent our resupply mission from succeeding. So it has been exposed already, as seen by the public, that all of these vessels in that area which China has deployed, almost more than 10, are really part of the Coast Guard, which is under the Chinese Military Commission.
I think the problem here overall is China isn't frankly taking the Philippines seriously. This isn't the first time. We've seen the use of laser lights. Do you remember? Right, Asek? We've seen the use of laser lights. Number two, how our fishermen were treated. In other words, this is not the first incident. This is one of many. And it seems China is saying, okay, they'll get upset, but they'll get over it. There will be no serious act on the part of the Philippines.
Which is why, Karen, as you have seen under this administration, we've taken a new tack insofar as our foreign and security policy is concerned. No, the president went to the United States to meet with President Joe Biden himself, and that visit produced many results insofar as strengthening our alliance with the United States. So, what we're doing now is we're strengthening our international alliance with our traditional partners and friends. We're working with other countries as well, like Australia and Japan. Secretary Anyo a few months ago just came from Tokyo to meet with the other two national security advisors. We're doing all of these so that we can show to China that we're not alone. No, we may be a small country, but we have friends who will come to our aid. At the very least, will give us moral support and statements in support of our position, so that, as you said, China will no longer belittle us. So that's the tack that we're doing, so that we are taken seriously.
Okay, but then you do have several countries that are condemning China, but as a country, what are we doing enough? There's already been a commentary that Vietnam, for example, Vietnam is a small country, but they will not let up. What are we going to do with Ayungin Shoal after the behavior of China?
Well, as I said in the press conference yesterday, Karen, we will never abandon Ayungin Shoal. No, Ayungin Shoal is part of the Philippine territory, and let me just also put in context the
So
China.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So after the water cannon incident, are we continuing resupplying?
Yes, definitely. We will do whatever is necessary to provision our troops there. No, the Philippine government position is clear. We will not lose a single inch of our territory, and that includes Ayungin Shoal. So we will continue with our resupply missions, no matter how hard it may be. not only because we need to supply our troops there with food and other provisions, but also because it is rightfully ours.
Okay.
As I was saying, Karen, um, the positions of both countries, insofar as Ayungin Shoal is concerned, are very clear. China says that it is part, no, of their territory, but our position is, as a low tide elevation, Ayungin Shoal can neither be the subject of a sovereignty claim, nor is it capable of appropriation under international law. And this was affirmed by the 2016 arbitral award to the Philippines. Therefore, China cannot lawfully exercise sovereignty over it. Now, insofar as we are concerned, the Philippines is concerned, Ayungin Shoal is within our exclusive economic zone. It's part of the continental shelf of the Philippines. And we have troops in the shoal itself. So we are in actual possession of the shoal. So if you will ask anyone, an international law expert, they will always say that we have the right and we have the legal basis to back up our claim, which is why we are firm in our position that no matter how hard, no matter the odds, no matter how large the ships of China, we will continue to resupply our troops in the coming years.
But what is the National Security Council advising in terms of actually prohibiting China from crossing the exclusive economic zone? Because it's what's happening is a bit of a push. Another. It's a continuous test of how far they can go. So there, other than more presence, what do we need to do so they won't even cross our EEZ?
You know, Karen, at the onset, the first thing we need to make sure is that we are firm in our position. Okay,
Are we firm?
and we are. And I wish to assure the public that we are firm in our position. No, the foreign policy and the security policy of the Marcos administration is very clear. No, I just talked to the National Security Advisor yesterday, and that is his instruction. No, Secretary Eduardo's instruction is that we are firm with our position. We will continue to do what we're doing, and we will push back as well. Now, as to the question of where do we go from here, there are many options on the table. But because of national security concerns, I cannot divulge them right now. No, but there are several options on the table how we wish to proceed. But let me just assure everyone that we are not backing down, and we will continue to assert our sovereign rights and jurisdiction over the show.
Okay. Now, an interesting, there's a difference here is the Philippine Navy are what we call the gray ships. What's actually patrolling our waters is the Philippine Coast Guard. Are we allowed under the law, or is it wise diplomatic practice to actually ask for support from our allies in terms of Coast Guard patrols? Because I know there are talks for joint Navy patrols, but that's quite different from Coast Guard patrols.
Well, first and foremost, it is not only the Coast Guard that's patrolling our exclusive economic zone. No, it's just that we see more of the Coast Guard than we do the Navy, precisely because the approach should be Coast Guard to Coast Guard. So it is mostly the Coast Guard activities that are reported in the media, but the Philippine Navy is also very active. In fact, the supply boat is chartered by the Philippine Navy. Okay, so in Ayungin Shoal, we see mostly the Coast Guard, but the Navy also sends its ships to patrol other parts of our exclusive economic zone. But to answer your question, yes, the discussions between the Philippines and the U.S. are quite advanced already. There are some logistical problems that need to be addressed insofar as the joint sales are concerned. So the timetable there, I would think, is before the end of the year. We would have those joint patrols, but as to the other details of these joint patrols, they're still being worked out between the Department of National Defense of the Philippines and the DoD of the United States.
And where do you see this going, sir? China has already responded and criticized, accused the United States and the Philippines on infringing on China's sovereignty.
as I said, there's no basis whatsoever to the sovereignty claim, no, of China. It as a low tide elevation,
Yeah.
Ayungin Shoal is not capable of appropriation under international law. So we will go, the Philippines and its allies, whoever these allies may be, will go where international law allows it. No, there is freedom of navigation in the exclusive economic zone. What we have in the EEC are sovereign rights. No, so wherever international law applies, we will sail. So there should be freedom of navigation because this is consistent with what is called as the rules-based international order.
Okay, and is this the first time a Chinese Coast Guard, the China Coast Guard, has in a way, attack might be too strong a term, but acted provocatively against a resupply mission in Ayungin Shoal? Is this the first?
No, no, unfortunately not. No, maybe the word is aggressiveness. No, so the military grade laser incident was also Ayungin Shoal. The other dangerous maneuvers in the past were also in Ayungin Shoal. So this is really the thorn on the side of the Philippines and China. This is really where tensions are very high because our positions are far apart. And Karen, there's even a claim, and I just saw it this morning. There's even the claim by China that supposedly there's a gentleman's agreement on an agreement in the past that we would tow away that ship. No, and I'd like to take this opportunity to specifically state that we have no idea what they're talking about. No, I've talked to our colleagues from the Department of Foreign Affairs, even the ones with the DND from the previous administrations. No, there was no commitment whatsoever insofar as the Philippines is concerned, and there is no record of any such commitment. No, there is no record of a meeting or a official record that the Philippines in the past committed to China that they will tow away BRP Sierra Madre. There is none, and it is again part of the disinformation operations of China.
And let's put a little context here. I had Senator J.D. Ejercito on Head Start yesterday. It was his father, former President Joseph Estrada, who actually put, is that correct, the BRP Sierra Madre there as already an indication, that's a symbol that the Philippines possesses Ayungin Shoal.
Yes, if my recollection is correct, that's right. Because Karen, let me also place into context the importance of Ayungin and the rest of the West Philippine Sea for the future of the Philippines. No, this is not just about bragging rights.
Oh,
With the West Philippine Sea, in our estimation, of the National Security Council, is the future of the Philippines. It will ensure our food security, and in fact, the energy resources in the West Philippine Sea can turn around the fortunes of our country if we can just utilize that for the benefit of the country. And as you know, no, we need as much funds as we can instead of borrowing from other countries. So our position is our future is there, and for the benefit of this generation and future generations, we should continue to assert our rights so that we can improve the lives of our countrymen.
in terms of the moves of China, is the National Security Council saying that China's end goal is to actually possess Ayungin Shoal?
Yes, it looks like it.
Yes, right? Because if you can't resupply, you'd have then to take out manpower there.
Yes, that is the ultimate goal of China, to blockade at all times the resupply missions of the Philippines. So this is going to be very tricky on our part. But as mentioned already by our senior officials in government, and as we mentioned, the National Task Force West Philippine Sea, led by Secretary Eduardo Año, is committed to do whatever is necessary to maintain our troops in Ayungin Shoal. And as mentioned in the Mutual Defense Treaty between the U.S. and the Philippines, an armed attack against a public vessel, can be a ground for the invocation of the Mutual Defense Treaty. So I think this should serve as a signal to China that the BRP Sierra Madre, as a commissioned vessel of the Philippines, is covered by the provisions of the Mutual Defense Treaty.
But they may never go into an armed attack, but they can water cannon every week. That's the problem. It's not defined as an armed attack using a water cannon.
That's right. That's right.
Parang pahabaan ko ng PC eh. Who blinks first?
Yes, and as I said, we will do whatever is necessary to keep our troops there. We will maintain the BRP Sierra Madre. We will provide provisions and supplies so that our troops are well supplied.
Okay, my last question is, even in the past administration, we as a country, before we could act on our own self-interest, for example, exploring the West Philippine Sea, oil exploration, the interviews I've had on Head Start would be to first not to do anything to provoke China. That was always the fear, that was always the move. At this point, with China's behavior, is the NSC already advising this administration that, frankly, a way to show China that it is ours? Because we do have to put our money where our mouth is. Just saying we won't give up an inch, we won't give up an inch, it's something they've heard for years. And there's no more impact with China. But if we explore our own waters and start behaving that it's ours, doesn't that make a difference? So with exploration, for example, where are we when it comes to that?
No, Karen, that is a very difficult question to answer. There is the National Task Force West Philippine Sea. There will be a meeting very soon. I think that question will be one of those issues that will be tackled there. How do we, what are the other things we need to do to assert our sovereign rights and jurisdiction over Ayungin Shoal and other parts of the West Philippine Sea?
Means something is our home, right? Let's say you're claiming something is your home, your property, and yet you're afraid to paint it because you might offend the neighbor. It's in a similar situation. You're afraid to act within your own territory because it will offend the neighbor.
Yes, but it depends on the neighbor how he will also react to if he will consider what you do as a provocation. No, for them, our continued resupply of our troops in Ayungin Shoal is a provocation, but it is our right to do so. So, despite warnings to the contrary that this can be a provocation, we will continue to resupply them. However, the other parts of your question, which relates to the utilization of the West Philippine Sea, I think those are things that will be discussed in detail by the National Task Force West Philippine Sea, led by Secretary Anyo.
All right. I want to thank you so much, National Security Assistant Director General Jonathan Malaya. I do hope to see you again, sir. Congratulations on your new post.
Thank you for having me, Karen.
All right. Always nice to see you, sir.